Everyone is talking about AI like it's some kind of a shortcut. It isn't. If anything, it forces you to become more precise about how you think and how you spend your time. Because no matter how advanced things get, you still only have 24 hours. And in my world, those 24 hours disappear very quickly. So I'm constantly dealing with, complex evolving information, working across different kinds of problems, and at the same time trying to turn all of that into a meaningful content. And at one point I realized it's, getting very uncomfortable. I wasn't tired of thinking. I was tired from processing, reading, sorting, rewriting, and organizing things. It just felt my entire day was just going into managing information instead of actually using it. That's when I stepped into AI as a trend and started using, it as a leverage, and not to replace people, not to cut corners, but to remove the repetitive load that I could just focus on what actually matters. And because a lot of these early stage work we all do, like research, summaries, first drafts, organizing notes, and those things are necessary, but they don't always need your highest level of thinking. And once you start shifting that layer, everything else starts opening up. The first big shift for me was research. Earlier, if I had to deeply understand something, I would easily block 2 to 3 hours reading different sources, cross checking, making notes, and trying to connect the dots. Now, I still do the same thing myself, but I don't start from zero anymore. Thanks to tools like ChatGPT, Perplexity, and sometimes Elicit, I get structured starting point. And I ask them to break things down, compare perspectives, and highlight what actually matters to me. And even points out what I might be missing. What used to take 3 hours now just takes, 40, almost 30 to 40 minutes to reach the clarity. And that one change completely shifts how your day begins. You're not overwhelmed anymore. You're just already oriented. The second shift was organizing everything I learned. Because understanding something once is not enough for me. If you can't retrieve it later, it's just a waste of time and waste of effort. Earlier, my notes were scattered across documents, folders, random files, and things saved, but I never, found them again. Now I rely on simple but structured systems using tools like Trello, Asana to keep everything aligned, and just in a way that makes sense. What needs attention and what's in progress and what's done, everything is visible to me. And when things start scaling up, small automations with Zapier help me reduce repetitive tasks in the background. This alone saved me about 5 to 7 hours, in a single week. But more than time, it gives me mental clarity. I'm no longer, trying to remember everything. You just need to know where it is. And then I made another shift that's most of the people ignore. Stop letting meetings control my day. Instead of just, I started scheduling calls, I started structuring my time. And along with that, simple booking tools like Calendly, I began, experiencing the world of AI. I use Reclaim, which organizes sometimes calendars for me, my meetings, my work hours, even, time. So instead of reacting to schedule, you start designing it. And that alone can save hours every week without you even realizing it. Then comes content creation, which is, a completely different challenge for me. It's not about knowing more. It's about explaining better. Earlier, I used to think, I used to sit and think, what should I, do next? And that question itself would drain time. Now I don't guess anymore. I just look at what people are already asking. Tools like Answer the Public and even simple prompts inside ChatGPT help me see patterns, what people are curious about, and where they are confused, what they are actually searching, but not, finding clear answers to. So instead of forcing ideas, I respond to real demand. And what used to take 1 to 2 hours of brainstorming now takes, 10 to 15 minutes of direction. And that makes the content even more relevant, not just more frequent. Once the idea is clear, the next challenge is express it properly. Because having thought is one thing and structuring it clearly is another. This is where I again started using ChatGPT, not to replace my thinking, but to refine it, to structure the flow, and to simplify the language and remove unnecessary complexities. Sometimes I use Quillbot just to make sure the language stays clean and easy to understand. And earlier drafting sometimes, properly could take 2 to 3 hours. Now I can just get a strong structure within an hour. And I spend my time improving the thinking instead of struggling with the wording. Before anything goes out, I always focus on clarity and accuracy because when you're dealing with serious ideas, you can't afford to just be careless. For that, I use Grammarly to refine the language and I cross-check important points again using Perplexity AI. And this step is not about perfection, it's about trust, clear communication, builds trust, and be consistent. That drives the accuracy to sustain it. Now comes the execution layer, where most of the people, fail. Ideas are useless if they are not presented well. Presentations, whether it's carousels or, visual things, I always use tools like Canva. That comes handy to me. Depending on anyone else, for basic design work is not my style, so Canva tool saved me time and importantly, the kind of momentum going on. For audio, I use stuff like Adobe Podcast that makes a significant difference in the kind of content I want to create. And when it comes to distributing and managing podcast style content, I use Spotify for creators to help streamline the entire process. And sometimes I also experiment with tools like Adobe Firefly for quick visual concepts, and that's more of an added layer, not something I depend on every day. And for quick basic edits, simple tools like InShot are more than enough for me. The point is not overcomplicating things. The point is to move faster without losing quality. And now one thing I want to be very clear about. This is not about removing people or reducing opportunities. If anything, it raises the level at which you need to operate. Earlier, a lot of time, would go into groundwork, collecting, organizing, drafting, and now those parts can be accelerated, which means that your real value comes from how you think, how you interpret, and how you decide the things. It shifts the focus from effort to insight, and that has been the biggest change for me. AI didn't suddenly make me more productive in a superficial way, but it changed where my time goes. And earlier, my time was going into searching, sorting, rewriting, and now it goes into thinking, deciding, and creating. And that is a completely different way to work, isn't it? So if you're looking at AI and wondering where to start, don't start with the tools. Start with a simple question. Where are you spending time that doesn't actually require a level of thinking? And because once you identify that, the tools becomes obvious. Most of them are already accessible. The real difference is not access, it's awareness, isn't it? And if this perspective helped you, make sure you subscribe to my channel. And because this is exactly what I break down, how to think, how to work smarter, and how to actually use these tools in real life. If you want to go deeper, I have also structured all of this into my courses website, and you can access my courses website at courses.patfrigate.com. And if you're someone who wants to work with me directly or need clarity on your own strategy, you can always book a one-on-one consultation with me at calendly.com/patfrigate. You don't need more hours in your day, but you just need to stop spending them in a way everyone else does. Okay? Stay tuned.